Welcome everyone to the first vehicle test review blog, I guess first video for thegroverwheel.com. First time viewer, that would be unfortunate. This is probably not going to be our best review ever. If you're a long-time reader, I'm sorry, this is what I look like. You can go back to reading if you want. It's just a YouTube video. If not, welcome to the first ride. I'm actually just on my way to work. It's really a camera test. We're going to see how well the Hero performs. I'm using the new GoPro Hero. It's the base model. We don't have a lot of money here. Donate. Maybe we'll get a better camera. Anyway, here we go. Get some good vehicle tips. Remember to always signal. Look where you're going. Today's vehicle is actually my personal car. It's a 2012 Honda Civic Coupe. I think really you can take away a lot from that because I run an automotive review website and I bought one of the worst depreciating Civics in history. So you can glean a lot from my expertise there. Really, it's not so bad. A lot of reviewers slagged off the 2012 Civic because it wasn't really a big evolution. This is the 9th gen Civic. It wasn't a big change from the 8th gen Civic. I don't really think that's a bad thing. The 8th gen Civic was an excellent car. They did complain that a few things got changed. It was made a little bit bigger feeling inside. Went away from the Civic's more sporty approach to doing things and went a little bit more the comfort route. I think that makes it a great commuter, but I do see what they're saying. The suspension isn't tuned perfectly. Steering is decent feel, but a little bit slower than you'd like from a performance car or even just a sportier car. However, it does have some good things going for it. It's got a really well laid out interior. No, the plastics quality doesn't always make it feel like a luxury car, but everything is well built, and while it's not fancy, everything feels cohesive. Every bit of it feels like it connects to the rest of the car. Everything's really well laid out. It's kind of a basic look to the radio setup and to the dashboard. However, everything is exactly where you think it should be and right there when you go and reach for it. I like that. I've been in some much nicer, much fancier cars that require you to distract yourself quite a bit trying to get their infotainment system to work. A lot of cars nowadays going to touchpad control for the radio. It's really hard to use when you're driving. Your hands are bouncing all over the place. You end up hitting the wrong button. It's very distracting. With this kind of setup, you can just reach out and touch what you're looking to touch. Turn on the radio, turn off the radio. You don't really have to pay attention to it. That being said, connected to a great stereo. It's actually a 7-speaker setup with a subwoofer in the back, really just a little bit bigger bass speaker. Sounds fantastic. It actually sounds better in this, the Coupe, than it does in the 4-door. I think it has to do with the acoustics of the way this roof slopes. The rear subwoofer is firing right up into the rear glass, which slopes forward, and it gives you a little bit of an acoustic cavity, gives you better sound. I've put this up against a few friends who have really quite good stereos, and this holds its own quite well. Getting back to driving dynamics, if you're looking for a sports car, you're probably going to be getting the SI anyway. So I'm going to review this like most people looking for the Civic would be. It's a very reliable car. I've had absolutely nothing really break on this car. I've had it pretty much since the beginning of 2012. It's 2016 now. It's got 63,575 miles, which is pretty high for this year. No problems so far. It gets excellent gas mileage. It's quite cold here in the Midwest right now, and unfortunately I'm doing a lot of in-town driving, so I've dropped down to about 31 miles to the gallon. When it's a little warmer out and the engine can be a little bit happier and get up to temperature quicker, and I'm doing a little bit more highway mileage, I average about 37 to 38, and I have seen over 40 on longer highway trips. for a non-hybrid car from this era, that's really quite good. Now, I know gas prices are cheap now, but they're going to go back up, and it really does save you some significant money having a car that gets gas mileage like this. Now, we're driving over some pretty bumpy roads right now, and as you can see, it jiggles a little bit. The suspension, well, I said was tuned for comfort more than the older ones, isn't, unfortunately, all that comfortable. It's relatively comfortable, and it's certainly not a stiff ride, but for the stiffness that it is, you'd think it would handle a little bit better. The suspension tends to load up and toe in on long sweeping corners, and doesn't dart as well in tighter corners as you'd like. I'm thinking about fitting thicker anti-roll bars, and I'll come back to this car if I do, but for now, it does feel like it kind of toes in a little bit when you get on tighter corners, almost like the front end is leaning over the inside wheel. Outside wheel. However, it's not bad. It's a relatively quiet car, although not the quietest I've been in. There is a little bit of more road noise, particularly with the tires I've fitted. I've fitted Continental DWS Extreme all-weathers. They're an all-season tire with a bias towards snow. I live here in northern Indiana. Snow's going to happen, and I have to get to work. It's not the best snow tire. It's certainly nothing like a dedicated Blizzak tire would be, but the inside of the tire is more of a snow tire than an all-season, and it does grip a lot better than the previous Continentals I'd had on here, the stock tires, which were awful. They were the worst tire I've ever had in the snow, factoring in that they were an all-season. I've driven worse sport tires in the snow, but you shouldn't be driving those in the snow anyway. This car does pretty well in the snow, but it does tend to get a little bit stuck getting from a stationary position, getting going. I think it's just the weight. It's not the lightest car in the world. Not as heavy as some other vehicles in its class. I believe the Mazda was a little bit heavier, but it is still not as light as some older Civics. Things I like about it: it's pretty comfortable for a drive. Very nice seats. I'm not a small guy, you can see that. And the seat bolsters on this are wide enough for even my fat butt, but they hold me in place. It doesn't feel like a flat bench seat. It holds pretty well during the corners. It's great on a road trip. Like I said, the stereo is excellent. Forward visibility is excellent. Rear visibility is not fantastic. It's a coupe. These pillars kind of get in the way. Things I don't like about it, like I said, the suspension's not the way I would tune it. I like a little bit sportier setup, but it's fine. And as I said, some of the interior plastics probably could be a little bit better quality. Overall, not a bad car, and really not as bad as a lot of reviewers kind of slagged it off in 2012. The funny thing was, for 2013, Honda redesigned the car a little bit. Really what they did was fit some fancier looking plastics on the radio. A few trim pieces got changed, and they retuned the suspension a little bit. And then reviewers liked it just fine. As a result, the 2012, unfortunately, isn't really in high demand. But the coupe did fare a little bit better than the four-door. So, you know, I'm stuck with it, is the bottom line. If you're still watching this video, I don't know why. You're probably lost. YouTube has a lot of really fun stuff out there. You can probably go find that. If you're my mom, hi Mom, I'll see you soon. It's my first video, sorry. So why did I buy the 2012 Honda Civic? Well, I had a 1993 Mazda MX-5 Miata. It had some problems cropping up. I needed a more reliable commuter vehicle. I was starting to drive longer distances, and as anyone who's driven the first-gen Miata will tell you, it's a really small car, it's a really fun car, and it's miserable on the highway at 70. I decided on the Honda because it was this or the Jetta, and unfortunately the 2012 Jetta is awful. Everything is crappy plastic, everything feels like it's built down to a budget, and the reliability is very questionable. Honda was also offering really good financing, so that was another factor. I actually went to buy the Fit. I wasn't planning on buying the Civic. I was in the dealership test driving a Fit Sport manual, and I hated it. A lot of automotive reviewers really like that car. I found it to be remarkably slow. The front seats were a bit cramped for someone my size, and the clutch, weirdly enough, is very far over to the right on that car. It's almost right up next to the brake. That really doesn't work for me. I've found a few cars that do that. The Fit is probably the worst of the bunch for how far the clutch is in relation to the rest of the ergonomics. And what it meant was that I was crushing bits of my anatomy every time I changed gear, and that wasn't going to work for me. So unfortunately had to step out of the Fit, and I parked it next to the dealership, got out, very disappointed, saw they had a Civic Coupe parked right there. Wasn't what I was planning on looking at. It was an automatic. They didn't even have a manual as an option. Welcome to living in the Midwest. But I took it out, and I really liked it. It feels very comfortable for me. It's enjoyable to drive as a commuter. It ticks all the right boxes as a commuter. It's fuel efficient, it's comfortable, you can see out of it well, it's not that hard to park, and the stereo is fantastic. So I ended up going with it. Wasn't going to buy it in black, was going to buy it in a very lovely slate gray. Saw the black, fell in love, bought it. Still kind of wished I didn't. It's the hardest color in the world to keep clean. I've had white, red, black, gray, other black. Black is the worst. It looks neat on some cars. This one particularly, there's a lot of black window trim that really blends into the black of the car, and it looks good when it's clean or when it's wet, but the rest of the time it's impossible. My car is motley gray right now with all the salt. Still fun. Now we're going to do a little bit of an acceleration test right now. Roll on from 20, foot to the floor, car down, and 60. So it's not quick. It does, however, have Honda's lovely VTEC technology, which is a simulated second cam. So the engine really is a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde. From about 1500 to about 2800, there's really nothing going on. It's kind of slow, it's a little bit sluggish. Over 3 to 4, it feels pretty normal. And over about 4,300 RPM, the engine really comes alive. You can hear the VTEC kick in, and it's a more engaged and enjoyable engine to listen to. It's not the most linear power band, but it's got a little bit of character. So we're doing about 65 miles an hour right now. You can hear a little bit of road noise, but it's not too bad. You don't really have to yell in this car at high speed, and that was something that I had to do quite a bit at the Miata. It's good for road trips. Have I mentioned that? You can kind of just set the cruise control. If you put it in eco mode, it'll actually let the cruise float a little bit. So instead of locking it at one speed, it'll let it go a little bit quicker downhill, slow it down a little bit going uphill, and it helps your fuel economy. It's a neat trick, Honda. Another thing I like about this car, again going back to the stereo, and I'm starting to realize that a lot of what I like about this car is the stereo. Honda fitted what was relatively futuristic for the time, what they call an iMid display. Really, it's an LCD display right next to the speedometer, and in the 2012 Civic, which is the 9th gen Civic, as I said, like the 8th gen, it's a split dashboard, meaning that there's a lower instrument cluster with a lot of your warning lights and your analog tachometer, and then above that, really right below your windshield, is the speedometer, your gas gauge, fuel economy, and this iMid display. A lot of people complain that it's busy and too Starship-like. It's actually a very intelligently laid out design. It's almost like a heads-up display in that you really don't have to glance down very far to see your speed and important information. It is a big digital speedometer, which means you really don't have to think about exactly what speed you're going. when you're driving in areas that are quite particular about speed, you can really just glance down and know what you need to know. One thing I really like about the iMid control is you can actually connect a USB stick. All of your music on there is organized and displayed on the iMid screen. And it's very easy to scroll through. Just put everything in folders, and you can scroll through folders using the volume control. Similar, if you connect up your iPhone, your iTunes music is displayed as well on the iMid screen. That does have to be connected via USB to do that. It doesn't have Apple CarPlay or Android Connect. That's something that's come along on the current generation Civic. Alright, so we're going to test out the handling a little bit. We've got a tight right-hander and a little bit of an S-bend down. So, as you can see, or no you can't because you're looking at me, sorry. I'm going to take the tighter right here, toes in a little bit, not the quickest steering, but it's good enough. I've driven worse. Got a left sweeper here. As the suspension starts to load up, you do feel the outside wheel starting to toe in a little bit. These aren't low-profile tires. Newer Civics come with a lower profile tire. This was still a little bit of a higher profile, more old-fashioned tire, and unfortunately you can feel that in the handling. Where that does help is we're going over some quite nasty potholes. I don't have to worry about my tire popping off. So the summary on the 2012 Honda Civic Coupe. Should you buy one? Yeah, they're actually pretty good value for money now because the new Civics have come out. These have depreciated like a rock. You can pick up a pretty decent one of these with about half the mileage that I have on it at a dealer for about $12,000 to $13,000, and to be honest, you can probably talk them down from there. What you're getting for your money is a comfortable, relatively spacious, large trunk. The rear seats actually do flip down, which is something you don't get, weirdly, in the Accord Coupe. It's great on gas, it's very reliable, and if you go for the EX model like I did, you do get a sunroof with a little bit of reduced headroom, and you get the excellent 7-speaker stereo. If you go for a base model, you don't. The base stereo is fine, you don't have the sunroof, you don't get alloys. Really, when you're talking used cars, pick up the EX. It's not going to be much more, and you get good bang for your buck. I don't really recommend the EXL models if you can even find one. Nobody bought one in the first place. They are the same car as this, but you get leather in it, and you're going to overpay for the rather poor quality leather that you get. Go for the cloth seats. They're perfectly comfortable, and they're a much better value. Thank you for watching my videos. I hope you enjoy. If you want to check out more stuff, go to thegroverwheel.com. We've got some fun articles up there for you to read. If you're struggling to understand how to drive in winter snow, whether it's your first time driving in the snow or your 50th time and you've forgotten, like everyone seems to do every single year, check out the article I wrote last year on winter driving. That's available again at thegroverwheel.com. If you don't really like reading, which would explain why you're watching this video still, check out the review we've got coming up. It's going to be a little bit of a tips and tricks video on winter driving. That should be a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed the video. We appreciate a like or a comment. And as always, check out thegroverwheel.com for your automotive entertainment needs.